with it.
So there's no personal, there was no personal event or anything that happened in your life to where you went.
I mean, I was by a homeless guy, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Folks on the left are truly freaking out over the fact that Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks is definitely having some form of political awakening. Now, I'm not saying she's a completely conservative. She even states herself that she still holds a lot of progressive, a lot of leftist views. But the things that have happened to her over the last 4 years or so, maybe a little more, have truly caused her to be awakened to the truth that the political left, for all the smoke and mirrors and all the promoting how good and righteous that they are, that they are truly far from it. Here she's actually sat down with Glenn Beck of The Blaze and kind of talks about some of the things that woke her up over the last few years. Check it out.
So wait. So then what was that? I think we might be saying similar things because it's not, the heavens didn't open up.
Right.
You all of a sudden go, I can't do this. I can't say this anymore. So was there a time? Yes, it happened slowly, but was there a moment that changed you and said, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it anymore.
Real quick, if you walked away from the left, did you have some sort of political awakening, like events, or was it a slow, gradual shift? Like for me, it was a slow, gradual shift, but then there were a few events that were like landmark moments that I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. But if you had any, put them in the comments.
I mean, I would say the phrase "I can't do it anymore" for me applies to a handful of policy issues that the Democratic Party has been championing that I don't agree with.
So there's no personal, there was no personal event or anything that happened in your life to where you went.
I mean, I was sexually assaulted by a homeless guy. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, I was sexually assaulted by a homeless guy in Los Angeles in my neighborhood as I was walking my dog. Oh
my gosh.
And it was awful. I mean, I've talked about it multiple times. And look, I don't want to put myself in this position of being like this victim who's looking for empathy, but it is the moment where something very scary happened to me.
Listen to the response that she got from people on the left after she went on TV, went on her channel, and reported what happened to her. This is nuts.
And
why did that?
It wasn't just that had happened to me. It was the reaction I received from a faction of the left. Okay. The social justice left, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
Who think that, in some cases, the criminals are actually the victims and the victims are the criminals. Like, it's insane. And I don't know how big this faction is, but they're loud enough to push me away completely. And
has that not been the case over the last 10 years or longer? I would say going back to 2012. When you look at all the different cases, the Michael Brown, Jacob Blake, George Floyd, even, for all the areas, the times where I was even critical as a former police officer, I was critical of cops in some of these situations, but I'm also honest and open enough to say, hey, these individuals were doing things that they had no business doing, which ultimately were the reasons why they even came in contact with the police in the first place. Like being honest enough to say, hey, everybody that's a bad guy or everybody that comes in contact with the police and who ends up getting killed or hurt or harmed isn't necessarily an angel. And being honest about some of these dudes' past or some of the actions that led up to them being harmed. Like you have to be honest and open about that. Instead of trying to deify all these people, tell the truth. Tell the truth and you'll get more respect. And honestly, I think the social justice left is the worst part. I think it's all bad. I think it's all godless, to be honest with you, when you're talking about leftism in particular. But social justice, Marxist, BLM types, my goodness, they're absolutely the worst.
So it wasn't that had happened to me. It was the reaction of the left and how they were far more concerned with me talking about it because they felt that that was stigmatizing the homeless community. I have never gone out of my way to say negative things about homeless people. I mean, people who are living out on the streets are, in a lot of cases, victims who need help, right?
Yes.
But I was victimized by a guy that was strung out on something, could have been meth. You know, he was jerking around as he was walking toward me with his buddy. And
gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't.
Yeah,
it's
okay. It's okay. But it took a while for me to get over that because I still have to walk my dog. And so multiple times a day, I literally have to think about that incident.
And here's another point that a lot of people are unaware of. And again, I'm going back to 20 years of law enforcement, whether it was when I was working in a corrections environment and definitely when I was out on the streets. Not everybody who is homeless is a victim. Now, there are plenty of folks who are homeless who are victims, but many folks are there because of personal decisions, personally making a series of bad choices throughout their lives, which ultimately took away every opportunity that they had. And it's primarily alcohol and drug abuse. That's just the reality. I've had conversations, literal conversations with people who are homeless who said that they would much rather be out on the streets than be working a 9 to 5. I've had that conversation more times than I can count, straight up. So this whole idea that everybody out on the street is being victimized, and I know she said a good portion of them, she didn't say everyone, but I just want to make it clear, having worked with these people on a basically daily basis for decades, I want to make it very clear that there's way more to the story than these folks just needing a home. Some of these people, if you give them a home, they'll just destroy it, or they'll end up sleeping in their backyard because they're mentally ill, or they'll end up losing it because they're not taking care of it because they're too worried about getting that next hit, whether it's alcohol or meth or fentanyl or whatever, PCP, whatever it is, crack, whatever it is, that's their primary focus. And they got there through a series of bad choices and were given countless opportunities to fix things, to get their lives in order, but they chose not to.
And so I thought maybe it would help to talk about it. And then when I did talk about it, I totally regretted it because I was shocked at the way people reacted to me. But what that moment taught me was some of the characteristics of the quote unquote left that I thought were good, right? Like the kindness, the open-mindedness, the willingness to go out of your way to look out for people who need help, like that kind of stuff. There's a portion of the left that has shed those characteristics. They've taken on a more nihilistic approach to things, and they don't even believe in reforms. They just believe that everything about every political system, every program we have, every institution we have is just worthless and we need to burn it all down.
What's the old saying people say about a lot of these leftists is big heart, small brain. And I know somebody might be insulted by that, but just hear me out for a second. A lot of these folks, they're so compassionate, or at least that's the claim. They claim to be so compassionate to the point to where they're careless. Let's open up these borders. Let's help a young kid transition a child who believes or is led to believe in many instances to believe that there should be a different gender. Let's help them out. Let's cut off their genitalia and pump them full of dangerous hormones. Everything that they put their hands on, they destroy. The country with the border, all the lost lives, all the people that have died, all the crime, all the lost jobs, lost opportunities, this raising the minimum wage. Look at California. They raised it to $20. Now you have businesses shutting down left and right. These folk legalized drugs. They did that in, I believe it was Washington. I can't remember what city it was, Washington State, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe some other place like in Oregon. They legalized all drugs. And what happened? Rampant drug abuse, rampant crime, to the point to where, and at the same time, I believe they defunded the police. And what happened like a year later? they realized that that was a mistake, and they rescinded all of the new laws that they had, and they were begging cops to come back. Defunding the police, that was a big movement. Sounds really nice and compassionate until you realize that with no cops, bad people are emboldened. Sometimes I get frustrated. It's just a lack of thinking things through. It's just a lack of thinking things through. And what is the scripture saying about the evil people not understanding justice? Prime example.
Okay. So that nihilistic nature, I think, leads to a lot of really bad ideas and terrible behavior online. And that's pushing people out, pushing people away. And like, I mean, you look at places like Los Angeles, for instance, right? Or Cook County, which is where Chicago is. I paid very close attention to Cook County and what the election results were going to be in Cook County, because you have an influx of migrants going to Chicago, right? You have a lot of anger among the Black community in Chicago because they've been nickel and dimed by their local government.
It's crazy.
And at the same time, their mayor, Brandon Johnson, is doling out the cash for migrants and justifying it. And so they're angry. And so I'm watching all of this happen, and I'm just like, Democrats need to wake up, because more and more voters feel like they're being abandoned by the Democratic Party, economically speaking. And everyone got mad at me. Everyone's like, oh, you're anti-immigrant. I'm not anti-immigrant. I'm not anti-immigrant.
Immigrants built this country.
Yes, my parents are immigrants.
Yes.
Okay, I am not anti-immigrant. But I do have a problem with the Biden administration neglecting the border, pretending like there wasn't a migrant crisis at all, allowing these municipalities to be inundated with migrants without any federal resources to deal with the problem. And what? We're going to pretend like that's not going to cause electoral harm? Of course it is. So when you look at places like LA, there was an 11-point swing toward the Republican Party. Kamala Harris still won, LA County, but 11% toward Republicans, that's crazy in Los Angeles.
My problem with the policy there, again, look, I could be friends and debate and whatever with anyone. If it's honest. Thomas Jefferson said, question with boldness even the very existence of God, for if there be a God, he must surely rather honest questioning over blindfolded fear. Honest questioning means if I ask you a question and you present me with an answer and I'm like, I'm open to changing. You know what I mean? We don't have honest questioning. We now have got you questioning. We have cancel you questioning. And beyond that, we have this system that props up lies and a government that is willing to engage in lies. If you wanted to bring people in and open the borders the way you did, and then move people with our tax dollars on airplanes to cities where you're changing everything in that city, can we have that conversation first? And part of the problem was they were saying it's not happening. Well, yes, it is. And you're doing it behind our back in the middle of the night.
Well, it's interesting.
Going back to the lies, that's what they did. The border wasn't an issue. I've had debates with people online saying that there's no problem at the border. But now, the New York Times just recently came out with an article talking about over 10 million people. Now, post-debate or post-election, now they admit and concede that there were issues with the border. Again, another so-called right-wing conspiracy theory.
Because, and look, I can definitely be honest about my own flaws and my own mistakes, because I bought the mainstream media narrative that there wasn't a migrant crisis.
Really?
And yeah, I did believe it. I believe, because look, I was an idiot, because I mean, who do you trust in today's media landscape? Right? There's a lot of liars out there.
Yeah,
and when it comes to mainstream media, the fact of the matter is they do play defense more and more for the Democratic Party.
Man, it's really nice to see some people who are honest enough, once the information is presented to them, to examine it and say, okay, well, what's up with this? And when that happens over and over again, repeatedly, time and time again, those who are honest, again, honest with themselves, honest with the information, you will have to be challenged by that. I've ran into too many people who are just in an abject state of total denial, who don't want to even have a conversation. So it's kind of refreshing to hear this conversation. Let me know what your thoughts are about Anna and her transformation. And also, what do you think about Cenk? Because her co-host on the Young Turks he seems to be wanting to be more, concede more, and have mutual dialogues. A lot of folks think that he has ulterior motives, mainly money and media attention. And I don't discount that at all. I think there might be a lot of truth to that. But let me know what your thoughts are about this whole dialogue. I was really encouraged just by their open conversation and her admitting her mistakes. If you appreciate content like this, make sure you hit the like and give me a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.